right, welcome into a Sunday night edition of Chatterbox Reds, one that comes after what essentially is another heartbreaking loss in a season that really is full of heartbreak at this point for your Cincinnati Reds in 2024. And I am going to get out ahead of this and say, Nick, on the front end of this show, it's becoming obviously more and more apparent that it's going to be difficult to have, what we would call reasonable conversation for lengthy periods of time on a nightly basis where the story doesn't change a whole lot, where we're at, where we're going, and what the future holds. I know people want to pile on, and listen, like, I've been hard on Alexis Diaz. I think I'm getting maybe ahead of myself here before we get into the box score recap and jump into all of it. I know Alexis Diaz is going to be probably topic A of conversations for people that watch today's game. But to make it out that there's a problem there, or to sit here and suggest that, and I've seen some posts on X and people are acting like, Alexis has been bad all year. And I was the guy ranting and raving, Nick, not that long ago, saying that I think they should take him out of the closer role. And I was wrong. And the idea that we're going to sit here and make it out that Alexis Diaz is a huge problem, I'm going to get on the front end of this because I don't think that we should go too long in a show and sit here and propagate and act like that's an issue. If you're waiting around to listen to Nick and Trace, I don't know about Nick, but at least Trace discuss Alexis Diaz and act like there's a huge problem there, then you might as well just shut the program down now, because I'm not doing it, Nick. I'm not doing it. And I think that's disingenuous for anyone to sit here and suggest that Alexis Diaz has been anything other than great this year.
I don't think you've been watching the games if you think Alexis Diaz has been a problem or terrible.
Couldn't agree more.
17 consecutive saves. He's had a down year, but his ERA coming into today was an even 4, and it's massively inflated from a couple bad games that didn't matter. I have no idea why Alexis Diaz is even in the Reds' top 50 prop. Maybe not top 50, but you know what
I'm aware of what you're saying. Yes.
I don't understand.
It's lazy. It's a lazy take. It's a lazy narrative. It's a completely disingenuous attack or kind of a shot at a fan base or a portion of the fan base that's emotional, if anything. And listen, I've been emotional. I've been on here ranting and raving and mad as can be about certain things, but I try to be fair. I think, Nick, I try to be fair, and to suggest that there's some major issue in the bullpen now because Buzenut's a guy that, again, I could give a rat's ass about, completely rat's ass about. I hope his family loves him, and I hope he has a great life. But outside of that, I could give a rip of what happens for the rest of Buzenut's career, okay? And then you turn around and you sit here and you see Alexis Diaz blow one save, and now all of a sudden the bullpen's a huge problem. Get a grip, man. Honest to God. At least give it a college try of watching these games if you're going to sit here and act like the bullpen's a major problem. Meanwhile, the offense continues to sputter, and I guess since they're unable to score in a couple different spots today, which ultimately bit them in the tail. So I guess we jumped into the Alexis Diaz discussion right before the box score recap. But on nights like tonight, Nick, it's hard for me to. It's hard for me to come up with a plethora of things that are actually reasonably discussed. And this seems to be topic A. And I just cannot fathom. I cannot fathom being somebody that watches this team on a night in, night out basis, being somebody that is genuinely involved into this franchise, and even for a single second of your life, thinking to yourself that you should make something out of this Alexis Diaz thing. You got to be damn near brain dead. God's honest truth. But honestly, people like that almost piss me off more than this team, who, quite frankly, you would think couldn't piss you off anymore. But here we are. It makes my brain hurt thinking that we are going to sit here and try to criticize Alexis Diaz after he's done nothing but, quite frankly, be almost perfect for 2 months. Anyways, I guess that's the best I can do on the show. It's 9:06. If you're looking for sympathy for Alexis Diaz or you think he sucks, I'm not the guy tonight. I'm not the guy. Box score recap. Is that where you want to go?
Let's do it. Let's do a box score recap.
All right. Presented by you. Take it away.
All right, Reds taking on the Pirates, game 4 of 4 in a series in Pittsburgh. Reds looking to get out of town with the series split and secure a winning road trip. Reds surprisingly went with Nick Martinez on 3 days rest to start the game. Martinez gave up 2 runs over 3 innings. However, in both of those innings, Martinez gave up a leadoff single, and both times the outfielder misplayed the ball, which allowed the runner to get to second base, which I believe contributed to both of those runs. Carson Spires then came in after Martinez, and he was really great through 4 innings, through 4 shutout innings, gave the Reds a chance in this one. The Reds' offense was dominated once again by Pirates starting pitcher Luis Ortiz. He threw 6 shutout innings. Ortiz now has a career 1.71 ERA against the Reds in 4 games. Now, the Reds trailed 2-0 going into the top of the 7th as they got into the Pirates' bullpen. With 1 out, Noelvi Marte ripped a single, and then Jonathan India doubled to put runners on second and third. Pirates then brought in the lefty Jalen Beeks to face Elly De La Cruz, and Elly De La Cruz greeted him with a single to make it a 2-1 game. Elly took second on the throw home from Michael A. Taylor. That was described by John Sadek as a throw to the plate for a reason known only to him and God. Pirates then intentionally walked Tyler Stevenson to load the bases. Then TJ Friedel laid down a drag bunt down the first base line. Beeks could not field it. Tie ball game, bases still loaded. Spencer Steer would then walk on 7 pitches, and the Reds took a 3-2 lead. However, Espinal and Dominic Smith would each fly out, and the Reds were not able to capitalize any further. Emilio Pagan got the Reds through a scoreless 8th inning. Elly De La Cruz singled to lead off the top of the 9th off Aroldis Chapman, but was subsequently picked off. And so the Reds handed the ball over to Alexis Diaz with a 3-2 lead in the bottom of the 9th. Diaz had converted 17 consecutive saves. Diaz was able to get Rowdy Tellez to hit a weak ground out for the first out, but then he hit Brian De La Cruz on the first pitch of his at-bat, and then Yasmani Grandal hit a 1-2 fastball at the very top of the strike zone, 393 feet. Reds lose 4-3. Reds fall to 63 and 68 on the season. Reds lose 3 of 4 to the Pirates, are now just 6 and 16 in their last 22 games at PNC Park. Reds are now 10 and 23 in 1-run games this season.
All right, we got to go down to the minor leagues again, down to the Dayton Dragons. Who else? I mean, otherwise, the deep drive of the day might not exist if it wasn't for the Dayton Dragons. So shout out to Leo Balcazar. He hit 5 home runs. He's hit 5 home runs over his last 24 games, thanks to Nick Kirby hitting a .351 average. He has 0 home runs in his first 67 games in 2024, coming back from an ACL injury, and he's only played 18 games in 2023. So 5 home runs over his last 24. You got to date back, I guess, to what is essentially last year. So shout out to Leo Balcazar. I just want to say, Deep Drive of the Day is sponsored by DSC, and they are troopers because we're fighting the fight together with Deep South Commodities for the Deep Drive of the Day. But I want everyone to know that they are a leader in renewable commodities for biofuel production, specializing in used cooking oil collection, aggregation, and sales. Visit www.deepsouthcommodities.com for more information. And thank you to DSC for supporting our show. And I really want to say, before we get started as well, thank you to everybody that tunes in on a nightly basis. You know, doing this show is tough at times. And in nights like tonight, it's very tough because you ultimately are taking time away from doing other things that you probably otherwise would rather do to talk about a team that otherwise is dead and, quite frankly, has little to nothing to play for the rest of 2024. Certainly, we can hope that 2025 has some pieces on this team, which it does, that we can watch and try to enjoy. But for the most part, I think we all know that 2024 has been a massive disappointment, and we're going to continue to try to, curmudgeon, I guess, our way through it. to take a word from some folks that have called me those things. But I just want to say, Nick, we'll continue to sit here and do our best. But on nights like tonight, I got to be honest. I'm digging down to the bottom of the barrel here, trying to figure out what it is that I want to try to convey to the fan base here. Other than I appreciate them and their loyalty, and on nights like tonight, you could be doing a lot of other things than to sit here and supporting our show, and I just want to say thank you. So if you're listening in podcast form or whether you're listening on YouTube, thank you for supporting us, because ultimately it's your support at the end of the day that is required for us to continue to do this. And it requires guys like DSC, certainly. It requires Game Time. It requires 988 and the Ohio Suicide Prevention Foundation for supporting us. And really, they wouldn't support us more than likely if it wasn't for folks like you who listen and watch every day. So just a moment of gratitude here before we get into the show. And I'll openly just say, like, you watch these games, we watch these games. There's just only so much we can sit here and deliver on a nightly basis and try to be entertaining and insightful. So just bear with us, and hopefully we'll continue to do a good job. But we really need 2025 to have a better version of what we've been watching for this to continue to be entertaining, and we're well aware of that. So, all right, we'll jump into Reds offense, I guess, first. Nick, I think that's a good topic. I obviously didn't choose the rundown. You did. I think it's a perfect situation to discuss first because, at the end of the game, you could sit there and, as we already discussed, Diaz is obviously the number one guilty party of why the Reds lost, and you just forget about the opportunities that existed. And I think it goes back to, Espinal having the bases loaded and then Dom Smith having the bases loaded and not being able to capitalize on an inning in which you could have broken it open. I don't know what term you want to use, but it just seems like they have not been able to kind of find a way to do that much this year when they've had that chance.
Yeah, two things. Number one, Luis Ortiz just seems to have the Reds' number, and it's one of those situations that we've had a lot this year, Trace, where I'm like, well, is it just a guy that has the Reds' number? Every team has certain pitchers that just have your number, or is it just bad offense? I don't know. I'm always kind of stuck in the middle on those kind of things. But he's pitched very well against the Reds. He came in really struggling, so that was brutal to watch once again. And then it was a great inning to come back. Obviously 3 runs in the 7th inning when you're down 2-0 is great, but there was a missed opportunity. Santiago Espinal swung at a pitch way outside of the zone early in the at bat, kind of put himself in the hole, and then he wasn't able to get a great swing, for a short fly ball that wasn't deep enough. And you put Santiago Espinal just gets a sac fly there, and obviously we're not crushing Santiago Espinal the way he's played, but he gets a sac fly there. Aroldis Chapman probably doesn't pitch in the 8th, and the Pirates bullpen's not very good, so you almost kind of killed yourself in 2 spots because obviously you didn't take the 2-run lead, and then you also didn't get a chance to face maybe some of the lesser Pirates bullpen arms, because I don't think they pitch Aroldis Chapman down multiple runs. I think they were like, well, we're down 1 run. We're going to try to, see if we can, get back in this game. And obviously they did.
They did not. It's hard to get on Espinal because he has played well lately. But it honestly seems like the story of this year in more cases than not, because yes, the run differential points to what they should have in a better record, right? And then you look at the 1-run games, the record in 1-run games, and you ask yourself, where does that lie? Is that David Bell? Is that just bad luck? Is it a combination of the two? Is it just lack of fundamentals and not being able to execute in certain spots? And it just seems far too often this season that even Espinal, right? Espinal's not able to put together a good enough at bat to get a run in with the bases loaded with 1 out. Smith still has a chance to drive in 2 runs, bases clearing triple, and we're not talking about any of this. And they just not been able to do that time and time again this year. So that continues to happen. And I don't know if it's just bad luck, or I think it's a little bit of bad luck, but mostly just not good enough players to where, you get out more times than not, simply put. Jumping into Martinez, he's a guy to kind of watch for down the stretch of the season, Nick, because I think he's certainly an option for this club heading into this offseason. it's going to be a mutual option. I highly doubt. I could be wrong, Nick, and I hope I am wrong. I hope the two sit down at the end of the season and they say, "Hey, do you want to extend this?" And the Reds say, "Do you want to extend this?" And they both say, "Yeah, let's keep the exact same deal." I have a hard time believing that's going to happen. I think Martinez is going to ask for at least another year on his contract, but I could be wrong. Having said that, it'll be interesting to see how they handle him down the stretch of the season, Nick, because it seems as if anybody that they find quote-unquote valuable, and I'm talking about the starting pitchers in Hunter Green and Andrew Abbott, even, I guess, Fraley at this point, and anybody else at this point that has some semblance of an issue, they've put him on the IL. You got to see how they'll handle Martinez with the rest situation. You have on the rundown Martinez 3 days rest. I guess your overall thoughts on him today and maybe bigger picture stuff with just him down the stretch and how they handle him.
Yeah, I'm confused at what the Reds are doing here with their pitching. I'm guessing we'll get a clearer picture when, we get to at least Tuesday and the Reds are off on Monday, but using both Martinez and Spires today when you're down two starting pitchers and Martinez on 3 days rest was interesting. I don't know. Maybe there's a plan there. Maybe they're calling someone up. That was maybe my biggest takeaway. Normally, I can at least give you some sort of educated guess on what I think the Reds are doing. I don't really have a good guess here. So I'm assuming they haven't announced any starters, but I'm assuming Lodolo will go Tuesday. And then I'm assuming they're going to call someone up Wednesday or do a bullpen game. Then Aguiar on Thursday. But then Friday they have a doubleheader, Trace, against the Brewers. So I know Suter pitched today. We'll get to him. We'll get to Reds MILB. Threw an inning in 2/3, which was interesting. It seems like he will probably be a guy they're going to try to get multiple innings, especially with where the season's at. I think you're going to see a lot more 3 innings from Brent Suter than 1 inning appearances the rest of the year. But yeah, that was more just the thing. And Martinez threw the ball pretty well. I mean, I thought the 2 runs he gave up were pretty crummy. It was bad defense on Steer and Friedel. And then we'll talk about Carson Spires in the back half.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of the back half, we have the Game Time app. For those that are looking to possibly go to any place that's going to require a ticket, please download the Game Time app today. You're going to realize that it's a very, very intuitive app. You can see the tickets wherever they are within the stadium and or the concert arena. You can, within 2 clicks, make a decision on whether or not you want to purchase those tickets. You can also get lightning deals from time to time that we've taken advantage of. And if you want to get another deal, you can use the code CINCY, CINCY. You'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, use the code CINCY, CINCY, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Download the Game Time app today. And as always, just mentioned it just previously, really, really appreciative of the Ohio Suicide Prevention Foundation of supporting our show based off of the demographics that we have. Let's face it, there's a significant amount of men who listen to this show, and statistically speaking, men don't take care of themselves as much as maybe we would like to admit. And if you need to use the 988 resources, please text or call. If you have mantherapy.org, please visit that. If it feels like I'm speaking directly to you, then don't fight that urge and get the help that you need. And it's not a shame to do so. So shout out to all of our sponsors for supporting us. Carson Spires, he comes into the game today, Nick, obviously, and does an admirable job. Gives the Reds more than a chance to win. And at this point, Nick, like, you get Aguiar, you get Spires, even Martinez. I'm trying to think of the other guys that maybe they'll use from time to time. It's hard for me to at this point guess or speculate. I don't know if Junis is going to be a guy or even as you mentioned, maybe Brent Suter is a guy that's going to go 3 or 4 or 5 innings from time to time. All we really at this point can expect or hope is that they go out and do what Carson Spires did today. And at this point, he kind of continues to put himself in a spot where he's going to be at least a name that we're going to bring up heading into next year. What that means, I don't know, but I guess it means something, if anything, Nick.
Yeah, I thought Spires threw the ball really well today. His sweeper was very effective. He got 8 cold strikes on it. That on just through 21 pitches. So I mean that's a pretty a pretty wild number there to get that many cold strikes. So he was certainly fooling the Pirates hitters, and he came in really struggling. So just good to see him get back on track. A guy that pitched so well for the Reds early in the year, and if this season would have gone differently, Carson Spires would have been a big reason why I think the Reds kept themselves afloat earlier in the year and gave themselves a chance up until a week or two ago.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's kind of hard to figure out what the Reds starting rotation is going to look like for the rest of the season, and Spires is certainly somebody that they're going to lean on heavily, probably. Because at this point, I don't know what to make of like the fifth spot, if you want to call it that. We have Green. I guess we'll bring him up now. We'll have Green in the rotation as a whole. That's kind of where my next question lies within a night like tonight is like, where do you go? What do you do? Green, Sam LeCure mentioned that if he thinks that if Hunter Green is actually healthy and he's capable of pitching and he's clear, he thinks Hunter Green should pitch. Despite some portion of this fan base thinks that we should shut down every single person that has any kind of potential impact for 2025. And I'm kind of on LeCure's side a little bit with all of these guys. And I know Matt McLean, we've not brought him up much. I don't know if we have an update on him. We can get to that in a minute. But more or less, I would just say, if these guys have a chance of playing, Nick, and they're not, basically worn out or they've been overused, whatever term you'd like to use there, they should play. There's only really one way to get better, in my opinion, when it comes to progressing and becoming, more and more comfortable and talented in the big leagues, and that's to just do live action, stuff. And as much as we hate what is going to happen from August 25th through the end of September, which is meaningless baseball to us, it's not meaningless. It's not meaningless baseball to some of these guys. They can go out and work on stuff in live MLB games and real MLB games where there's not as much of a, what's the right word to use, as much of a, repercussion, if you want to call it that, Nick, of working on stuff. Now, I'm not saying it's complete practice, but let's not act like it can't possibly be closer to that than just straight competing to win.
Yeah, Green, it sounds like if he does come back, we're talking 2 or 3 starts max.
Right.
Also interesting, it I guess was reported today by Nick Kroll that Green hit his elbow on a cabinet hard, and that's what started this injury. So he hit his arm on a cabinet, or his elbow on a cabinet, I'm sorry. He did not think anything of it at the time. Just thought, oh, that hurt. I don't know. I do that all the time. I bump into everything.
Right.
And then he went and pitched his next start, and then the next day he felt like a lot of discomfort. So I guess it's kind of a good thing that it was.
I think so.
Not that it was not something in his actual body. It was an outside source that caused this injury. So I guess that's a good thing. I mean, I guess I feel a little bit different with Green than McLean, because if McLean gets hurt again, you're probably not looking at a rehab that gets into next year. If Green comes back and hurts that elbow worse, then you're not ready. But since it was on something that was an outside thing, I'm with you. I mean, Green is like just hit his career high, tied his career high in game starts at 24. So it'd be nice to see him, I mean, at least get over 25, at least have a new career high in game starts, because as you mentioned a couple shows ago, we don't want just Hunter Green to get through September in 2025. We want Hunter Green to get through October in 2025. So I do think that's important. But really, Trace, the most prominent thing, just kind of looking at all this right now, is like for the first time this year, I really feel like the Reds are in danger of the season really going off the rails, if I'm being completely honest. Just with what they're at starting pitching wise. I mean, you have 3-ish starters right now. I mean, Nick Lodolo is legitimately the only starter left that is even like a starting pitcher that was considered on opening day. I guess Nate Martinez was in the opening day rotation, but then he got moved to the bullpen. Right. But like, I mean, that's where it could get really ugly here. If I'm
I mean, to drill this down into a single game perspective of the season, right? I mean, you're down. Let's just say the Reds are down 11-2 in the season, in a specific baseball game, and we're throwing Luke Maile out there to pitch. I mean, that's where we're at. And if people want to get upset because Luke Maile gives up 5 runs and they end up losing 15-2 instead of 10-2, I mean, go ahead, get mad, scream, yell at clouds, do whatever you got to do. I don't really care. I mean, I really don't. I don't mean it as if I don't care about this franchise or anything like that, but I don't really care how they finish this season from a wins and loss perspective at this very moment. I just can't do it because I know ultimately it's relatively meaningless. I do care about how guys finish. I do care about the competitive spirit of some of these guys. I'd like to see some of these players that might be a little skeptical about playing other positions, like Jonathan India, and I know people hate me for saying that. I don't care. I'd like to see them play those positions. Because this is basically a month full of spring training of just being able to get an opportunity to see guys play against big league talent and see what happens and see where they are. And again, you don't have to take every single thing that you see in a month and take it like it's an absolute fact. If Jonathan India plays in left field and plays a Gold Glove caliber left field, I don't expect you to think that going into next year. And I don't know who they're going to bring up, but let's just hypothetically say they bring up Rhett Lauder. I don't think that they're going to do that. But if they were to do that and he comes out and he doesn't throw the ball well, I'm not going to sit here and act like it's the world's worst decision and that he's not capable of starting and breaking this camp in 2025 with the team. Just as I will say, if he comes up and throws the ball unbelievably well, I'm not going to sit here and say that he's guaranteed a rotation spot heading into next year. I just want to see people get opportunities and progress that are going to mean something heading into next season. And that's where I stand at this point. I don't know if you're there yet. I don't know if the rest of the fan base is there yet. But on a night like tonight, it seems pretty evident. You lose 3 of 4 to Pittsburgh. You find yourself damn near the basement of the NL Central. You're 7.5 games back, at least the last time I checked, of a wild card spot. And you have little to no hope. Well, I'll say it, no hope of winning the division. So what do you play for at this point? You got to pick and you got to get real nitpicky on what that is. And I just think that it's disingenuous to sit here and I don't want to say judge the franchise on how they finish here, but I would be more or less focused on certain things outside of just winning and losing.
Yeah, I'm with you. I know in my head it doesn't matter at all, and I know it's. I'm not gonna be like, wow, they went 10-18 in September, man. This franchise is really headed in the wrong direction. But I don't know. Maybe I take things too personal sometimes, and I'm gonna but I know how other people are gonna take it. I'm just like, I don't.
Right. Well, we already lost.
We're just so exhausted.
The optimistic crowd, okay, which you get painted in that brush more than I do for certain reasons, and we all get the game. But my point is this, Nick. Like, I've tried to wrestle this to where were we wrong? Like, were we overly optimistic? Were we letting our guard down with this team and thinking they were going to be better than they really were? I don't think we were being disingenuous by the way we were excited about coming into this year. But I would just say injuries matter. And if you don't think that they do, then that's fine. It's a reasonable debate for another day. But you're never going to convince me that if TJ Friedl and Matt McLean were healthy, that this whole thing doesn't go differently. And maybe I'm just dumb luck optimist. But I'll openly admit, if those guys are relatively healthy next season, and this team isn't close to being competitive in the National League to make the postseason, then I'll put my hand up and say I'm sorry for being optimistic and feeling like we actually had something. But I'm not there yet. I'm not going to let one little bump in the road act as if this whole entire thing that we've seen for the vast majority of last year was all smoke and mirrors, because I don't think it was.
Yeah, I certainly don't think it was either. Again, you hope that, man, the Reds are getting all those one-run losses out of their system this year. I mean, hey, if I have to watch 10 more one-run losses the rest of the way so the Reds can have a great record of those games next year, Bring it on. Let's just knock them all out now, because, this is it's not fun when you go the other way.
Yeah, I mean, listen, It's tough. It is absolutely tough being a Reds fan. I don't blame anybody. You fan however you want to fan, you know? I mean, if you want to act as if the franchise is dead and that's how you want to operate, by all accounts, go for it. I'm not going to stop you. But I'm also not going to openly apologize about what I thought this year could be. I will openly admit that heading into next season, I definitely think they need to certainly fill up some semblance of an outfield hitter that we were hoping to get last offseason. That didn't happen. But outside of that, I'm gonna, I guess, put my head in the sand and just assume that we actually have a lot better players than what produced this year. So, all right, jumping into Reds MILB. I know tonight isn't maybe the longest show in the world, but I also think that we did our best to cover the topics as genuinely as we could. But we'll jump into Reds MILB, and then we got the who, what, when, where, and why next. And we also got some supers here to end the show. So, Nick, take it away whenever you're ready. Reds MILB presented by you.
All right. Louisville, their tough stretch continued. They lost 11-3 to Gwinnett. The Bats have lost 7 straight games to fall 10 games under 500. Blake Dunn 0 for 4, re-signs 0 for 3, did walk. Hines is now 15 for 84. It's a 179 average since he got optioned to AAA. Joey Weimer, he was 0 for 4. Brent Suter, as mentioned earlier, did make his first rehab appearance. Went an inning in 2/3, gave up 4 hits, 1 run, but no walks, 2 strikeouts. And then a tough AAA debut for Sam Ben-Schuster. He gave up 8 hits and 5 runs in his AAA debut. All right, down to AA, the Chattanooga Lookouts. They lost game number 80, and they were 2 outs away from getting no hit today. But their one great player, Tyler Callahan, broke it up. He actually crushed a double, 103 off the bat, according to the Mississippi broadcast. Callahan extended his on-base streak as well to 26 games, walked as well in this one. So really good to see Tyler Callahan. He's playing really great baseball. Well, the Lookouts are now 4 losses away, with 18 games left from having their most losses since they rejoined the Southern League in 1976. Austin Hendricks, 0 for 2 with a walk. Bubba Thompson, 0 for 3 with a walk. And then Luis May, a solid outing from him in the bullpen. He threw a scoreless inning. All right, now down to the good stuff. The Dayton Dragons, they won 7-2 over Cedar Rapids. Dragons 18 games over 500, 69-51. They've won 10 out of 11. And the Dragons increased their lead for a second-half playoff spot to 5.5 games. Now, the Dragons still have 2 series left, and in the minor leagues, they play 6-game series. The 2 series they have left this week is at home against West Michigan, who's 5.5 games back, so do the math. And then the next one is at Great Lakes, who's 6 games back. Those are the only 2 teams that have a chance of catching them. So obviously, they just need to take care of business. They win 1 game, they're probably in an okay spot. They win 2 games, they're probably a really fine spot. So, but they are placing the teams that are chasing them, so the other teams do still kind of have at least somewhat of a chance. Jacob Hurtubise made his return. He's on a rehab assignment, technically, with the Dragons, and he had a very eventful, he only played 3 innings in this one. He robbed the number 4 prospect in all of baseball, Walker Jenkins, of extra bases, made a really nice sliding catch, first batter of the game, and then Hurtubise stole home after he got hit by a pitch. It was on the good old, double steal where Leo Balcazar took off for second, stopped, and Hurtubise stole home easily. Cam Collier on base twice, 1 for 3 with a walk. He extended his on-base streak to 27 games. Hector Rodriguez, 2 for 5 with a double and a triple. Rodriguez leads the Midwest League with 128 hits. That's 7 more than anyone else. As mentioned on our DSC Deep Drive of the day, Leo Balcazar, 1 for 4 with a homer. That's his 5th of the season. Balcazar is hitting .351 with 5 homers over his last 24 games, which is really impressive because his first 67 games of this season, 0 home runs. Now, he was coming back off an ACL injury that limited him just 18 games last year, but he was a prospect that was really turning heads going into 2023. Obviously, last year dealt with injuries. This year started slow coming back from the injury, but starting to look like that that guy that we had a lot of hope coming into this year. We'd like to see him maybe increase his walk rate a little bit, though. Ethan O'Donnell, 1 for 3 with an RBI. Jay Allen, 0 for 3 with a walk and an RBI as well. Down to low A, the Daytona Tortugas were blanked 6-0 by Jupiter. They only got 3 hits in this one. You might remember yesterday I said this was a pretty big game for Daytona because Jupiter's the team chasing them. Jupiter has cut the Tortugas' lead to 3.5 games with now 13 games left. So the Tortugas still in a great spot, but they could have probably, for all intents and purposes, put Jupiter away on Sunday, and they were unable to do so. Sammy Stafora, 0 for 4. E. Smith Pineda, 0 for 4. Yerlin Confidant, 1 for 3 with a walk. Peyton Stovall, 2024 pick, on base twice, 1 for 3 with a walk. And then, unfortunately, really hate to see it, Adam Serwinowski, the lefty's had a great season, had a tough day on Sunday, gave up 5 hits and 3 runs in an inning and a third of work.
All right, a couple things in the chat I wanted to bring up. Where was it? Scott. I think it was Scott. Asked the Dayton Dragons. The Dayton Dragons magic number is at 4, I think. Scott asked, is the magic number for the Dragons at 4?
It's got to be higher than that. They still have.
Right. They have like a week. They have like a week and a half left.
So that they have 2 6-game series left. The 2 teams that are chasing them are 5.5 and 6 back they're playing. So if one of those teams wins all 6 games, which might sound crazy, but if you watch minor league baseball, it happens from time to time.
Sure.
Then obviously their league could completely collapse. But they win one of those games, they're picking up a game automatically on the other one. So
well, I think it's pretty close to 4, probably. That magic number's got to be pretty close to 4. Maybe it's 5. Somewhere in there.
Yeah.
I mean, if you only got 14 games left and you're up by what, 4.5, 5? I don't know. I'm not very good at math, but nonetheless, it's close.
They're up by 5.5.
Yeah, so 5.5 with 12 to play. I would say 5 is a pretty close number if I had to guess.
Okay.
Could be wrong on that, but I would. It's. We'll watch for a week.
They're at home. They're at home this week. It's their last regular season home series. So if you've been wanting to go see the Dayton Dragons Tuesday through Sunday, they're there all week. I would really encourage you to go out. That's a fun team. Great energy. These aren't just guys that are, sometimes you see these minor league players, just guys trying to put up numbers. They have great energy. They play really hard. They play to the crowd when they're in Dayton as well. So I'd really encourage you to go see them if you can this week.
All right, and then finally we have who, what, when, where, and why, as always. Got a day off, so that's a positive. Got a day off. We'll see if they can't regather the troops in Cincinnati before we push on, Nick. But I guess, as always, is to keep the tradition of the show going, we will do the who, what, when, where, and why. Not sure if you don't have a graphic, that's more than fine. But I know that we have the off day tomorrow on a Monday. Right back at it on Tuesday, but Nick will fill you in on what to expect when they do play on Tuesday against the A's.
Yeah, Reds taking on the A's. I think it's going to be Nick Lodolo, but the Reds have not officially announced it yet. The A's actually came back and beat the Brewers today 4-3. The A's, I think, are a little bit sneakier of a team than maybe people think. They went 15-9 in July. They're 11-10 in August. So they've been playing pretty solid baseball. I know a lot coming into the year, Trace. It was the White Sox and the A's are the 2 worst teams in the history of baseball. Well, the White Sox are not even in the same stratosphere as the A's this year. So yeah, I mean that team is kind of bad as their roster look coming into the year. Have played pretty well. So yeah, I think this will be an interesting series. There's a lot of interesting players in the A's that I'm kind of honestly, as a baseball fan, kind of excited to see some of these guys that I don't get to see a lot. Mitch Spence, right, will be going on Tuesday. I don't have a whole lot, but 3-game series, and then the Reds will have a 4-game series against the Brewers with a doubleheader on Friday this week.
All right, we got basically what is left a month and a week left of baseball. The Reds, for the most part, have 2 longer stretches of baseball, and then they kind of have the last week there. They have kind of a pretty light schedule. So, it kind of it's a spot in the season where we kind of all know the situation, but you still get to watch the Reds play. And as I've mentioned before, you kind of miss these types of nights, I guess, or types of days in the middle of the winter when you're longing for baseball in any capacity. But it doesn't feel like it right now. It doesn't feel like it right now, but I'm sure that at some point we'll be wishing that we could watch the Reds like we do right now. But finally, only thing I got is that there's 450 people that have decided to take time out of their day and watch this show tonight, and I just want to say thank you for continuing to support us. I know how easy I just know how easy it could be just to kind of shut it all down, not worry about it, forget it all, and Nick and Trace just talking to the oblivion until maybe December when you come back around on the Reds and you think they might have a chance again. But I'm not promising that we'll have better days soon, but I just know that math, at some point, the statistics have to be on our side. There's just no way that we can be this bad for this long. And I'm very hopeful that the future for this franchise is relatively bright, and we'll get to enjoy it together at some point, because we're going through some growing pains right now, if you want to call it that. But as always, we very much appreciate all of you. Please like the stream if you haven't already, and check out the podcast. Go Reds. See you tomorrow, Tuesday. This is where I come on as an encore, and I just want to say, Austin B., you didn't say anything, so this is on me, but I very much appreciate your super chat. Only true special people get their super chats after the outro. Austin B., you are one of them. Thank you very much for supporting this show. We'll be back better than ever on Tuesday. We very much, very much appreciate your support. Take care, everybody.